All right, hell yeah. I'm watching my video with you, and coming up with some different stuff. So, because I said it would be weird to have like a serration here and a removed material, but then I'm talking about a step down right here. So those are the same thing. So I really do think you want to keep this elevation and keep this step very minimal and over here very minimal. But you want to be able to move your hips back and then get into this 3/4 position, and then also have have this drop sharply from here, probably even sharper, or have this go out straighter and then have a bump out, to where if you get your hips back here, it's going to just drastically now shift onto a new angle. And I think that drastic shift right there, and you can smooth it out, but it has to be functional. Like mine, I have to lean back all the way to here to even get that. Okay, and that wasn't even what I was talking about, but that is the lead-in for this side tube. So what I'm going to do is going to bring the material from this high point down to a low point, and I don't even actually need to extend the area of the boat. I'm just going to take this and make it a vertical side, because we have all this rounded tube to work with. So I could go vertical to here and then tapered up. So it's going to be, so you could even keep this elevation right here, but then just have a taper out. I think you would want to, like I said, if these are going to be your high points, we can make this step down more aggressive and cut right through this rounded tube out to vertical. And then so, you would hit these two contact points first if you were kind of in a fairly neutral position, but the second you get past those two contacts, then you dip down onto this diamond shape. At the end of this video, we talk about a dream I had and stuff like that, but hell yeah. So that would be kind of like this diamond shape in here, or trapezoidal. But it has to be where if I lean out onto this tube, it's now like highly edging the boat. Like, and this is in addition to whether we're going to have the V design. It's actually in addition to that. And so that's kind of cool. So you do have a heavy stair step here. It just doesn't engage until it passes these. And then you have a high stability because you have 2 points of contact. You now have this point of contact, which isn't too high, because we said we're trying to make this surface not too high. But then, I guess once we remove this material, like I'm saying, it doesn't matter anymore. But this is your contact, and then we would have the contact over here on a harder edge, just like this. This has a harder edge, and so you would have the edge come up nice and hard, and then you would have this transitioning surface, or just have the edge here, and then a stair step. But you don't even need the stair step if you could just make it a smooth transition, because even on this boat, you have a transition from here to there, and we do talk about that. You do have a transition. All right, hell yeah. All right, hell yeah. So this is another addendum, and this, I'm, in the comments, what do you think? Because kayaks are rounded. If it made sense to have like bubbled material, they would make bubbled material. Or maybe they just haven't thought of that, but I don't think, like in a raft, this I-beam does provide tracking. I think there could be extra benefits to an I-beam. Or just these riffled surfaces. One thing that I can think of is you have 2 points of contact. So if I'm talking about this section right here being the 3/4 edge, like if I put this onto edge, well, check this out. Like this tube's in the water, and then this tube, and that's 2 separate contact points separated by a distance. Now this is a fairly flat spot, and that works just fine. But if you do have 2 separate points with kind of a gap in the middle, then they knife in just a little bit better. And so from a rafting perspective, I think there is benefit potentially to have that over like a fully roto-molded boat. If this was just plastic, you can shape it however you want. I don't know. That's why I'm kind of making this. I would assume that this is superior, but, all said and done, I don't know. I think I-beams allow just this perfect amount of tracking, especially with R1. Like I wouldn't I wouldn't want to just give up an I-beam for a smooth surfaced floor unless I had very definitive edges. Yeah, so that's kind of my 2 cents there. And we're paddling with one paddle on one side, so even if I am sitting neutral, I think I-beams are a little bit better than that. But hell yeah, so that's kind of what we're mimicking. These surfaces might look like 2 bump outs in a raft. They could be smoothed over, and you could make an R1 out of drop stitch or smooth surfaced or rotomolded plastic. All right, hell yeah. All right, another addendum. So this is cool. And when I push down on this back, we're hinging right at the hip. You know what I mean? Or like these kayaks are designed to where they have a hinge, or like a tipping point is going to be right behind the hips. And that's kind of what we want. We want just minimal lean back, shifting weight back, and then getting this on. And what I found, and what I'm going to talk about, is how this is stable, because like the half slices and even the back of a creek boat's different than the fully rounded surface of the front that's continuous contour. The back is more of a that even especially the half slice, it's got a tipping location. You lean back, and then you so just get to it. Your entire surface, this entire flat surface engages at the same time. Compared to this fully rounded surface, these are unstable because you're just moving along a rounded surface. Like a ball or a rounded cylinder only has a narrow contact point. Where this in this whitewater kayak, a half slice, or even maybe a creek boat, the back is, if you lean back, it hits more of a flatter surface. And so I have found, especially with sponsons, that if you lean out and you have like a flat surface that you land on, it's friggin' bomber. And so this really shows that you can have a low volume stern even in a raft, as long as you take this profile and make it fairly flat. Have your hinge, and then when you lean back, you're leaning back on a fairly flat profile. And that's what I was talking about from mimicking some of the Colorado boaters, their style of surfing from the back. I think you can get that just from hinging at the hip and then leaning back and then just reducing this. I don't know, you probably don't need all of it. So, I'm looking to at least take a foot off the front and the back of a 10-foot raft. So, all right, hell yeah. All right, hell yes. This is going to be a voiceover, and you're going to watch this full clip and listen to the audio. But just watch me in this position. Just pretend this is an R1 raft. I'm trying to simulate the front, and what I'm pushing against is thwarts. And it's just, I love this because I can picture it. You know what I mean? I can picture that cockpit. This is half of, the boat, and it's kind of just like a cutaway. But that's me leaning up against the front thwarts, and then the back is up out of the water, and I'm able to hold a surf. That back is screwing me over for how long my boat is and not being able to get it. So hell yeah, watch this clip. All right, hell yeah. So there's another addendum. We're talking about how to bring this rocker forward on the raft. In the raft, if I want to get this whole back flat, in a raft, I have to sit almost at the back of the boat, where I should be able to just lean right here or scooch back like a foot to 2 feet, and that is going to be effectively getting this whole back of the boat. So then you can choose whether you want to have the back stubby or you just want to get that in the water. Like having this pressured in the water helps you surf in front of the waves, you know what I mean? If the wave is trying to hit right here, then, half your boat is just really tacky. And so, so definitely that's an opportunity for shaving off a foot for sure. But even just getting that whole boat flat, you'll feel the dynamics back there more. So that's kind of a little addendum of, trying to do the same things that the Colorado boaters, and this goes back almost a decade, where one of the R1ers in a red R1 boat, sorry I don't know the names, folks, was at the surf wave just all the time from the back compartment. And so those are things that I just think need to evolve, because all those tricks are like hella. And they just need to evolve from the center compartment. So when you're out on the river, you can take advantage of those opportunities. And yeah, because it's just so functional. There's so many benefits to having that back in the water and this at a high edge angle. So I think that's it. And I think what you could lose is the 3/4. Like right now, I just have 3/4. So I get that. I get that from, and that's the secret sauce, is how to combine releasing 3/4 of the boat on the side edge, but then also having this additional placement back here where if I scooch just a little bit farther, so I want the 3/4 in the neutral position, and then when I scooch just a little bit farther, I'm in the fully rockered position. And I think that's totally capable, because the 3/4 position is right here. The fully rockered position is, currently on the very back of the boat. And so that stair step and that hinge on the raft can be drastically, just drastic, and in a location where you're like, I feel it. If I put my butt here, I'm just getting this boat airborne, vertical. And that is going to be super important for like boofs, especially if you can boof. Currently right now you can't really boof, like you should be able to drop, off the, you should be able to drop a ledge off the bow or stern of your boat. And so that I think I can bring that physics to this game. Like what they're doing there's this new clip of the Spud, doing a waterfall, a rotation off of a waterfall, And it doesn't have to be, just a drop, but, and then doing a rotation, and then, kind of like a bow. I don't know the terms, but you'd be able to more do that having very sharp hinges, to where it's just like, hey, if I move back here, booyah, like all my boat's out of the water. The contact patch is small, and then I can get my boat to the edge of something where the last portion of it is me released. So because my boat can do 3/4, and so that's where I was trying to do like a dip, ear dips. It's like, hey, is that a boof and ear dip? But now you really want to be able to get into the back compartment, and yeah, because and I don't mind running some holes. My goal is to be able to run holes like, the pro kayakers, just from the physics, not from the heroism of it, just from the physics of it, because you should be able to like drive, boof over a hole, land, and skip. A lot of that, because that's where people confuse. Like, oh, pros are just doing that. Well, pros are doing a lot of things. Some can be, a lifetime of inattainable. And then others are like, no, you should be doing that like ASAP. That's a simple skill that a pro is doing. You're just not doing it. And so that's my 2 cents on And there's some things that have pucker factors and then physics that, no, they actually require a hell of a lot. But like even in a kayak, people are doing kickflips. Okay, cool. Now let's learn a kickflip. And the same thing with R1ing. But, the consensus is, because I was like, what do you guys want? And the consensus is they want easier. And that's good, because it shows that, I just want to prove that it can be done. Because I come from a skateboarding perspective, that if you can even show this can like do a spin, an edge here and do that, and do similar moves, then you proved it can be done. And after you proved it can be done, just do it. Because there's so much involved in getting your boat to edge and stay, and, even with a common spin. But then the second you do those things, you're just like, oh, I see what I'm doing, and I'm just going to always do that. Thered be no reason to get kicked out. And so, even though R1ing for some tricks can be difficult, like a skateboarding trick, mainly it's the fact is like, can you do it? And then are the physics predictable? And then how can you improve the physics to become more predictable? All right, so I definitely like this addendum. So thanks for joining me. Booyah. All right, hell yes. This part confused me when I was talking about it, because we were just saying that this was the same profile, so we can take a look at, this profile is the same as the kayak, and maybe we want to keep that profile. What I think is that we want to, well, I guess it doesn't really matter, but we do need this height for sitting to be about this height, And so when we do sit over here on the back and get those dynamics, even if we took a foot off, you know what I mean, I think you do make this a little bit more rockered, and we're talking about how to make it flat. And so I think that's going to be a controlled element, because if you take the back of this boat like a half slice, it's a totally flat surface anyway, and then that you're just going to control the angle. So whatever angle works the best for an R1, that might, control that angle. And so if you do have that angle, and then your boat actually is fairly stubby, and you're sitting here on the very back of it, how do we climb in? You know what I mean? And what I think is that you take these tubes, and so even if it's just a little bit more rockered, and then you keep that contour where you take this surface, and this surface probably does have to come up, but then you just you take this sitting surface, which is like a drop stitch material. That's kind of the thought from the back thwart or from the compartment, and you just take this at a just wherever your sitting elevation is. And the second you reach your last place of sitting elevation, then you can do whatever you want with it. You can bring it out straight as long as it's high enough out of the water. I was kind of talking about that consideration. But anyway, so let's just say you continue that curve a little bit shallower, and then it comes up to, so you're going to be sitting. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, just continue the curve up to here. This surface is going to come up to here, and I don't know. I think part of it is also to make these two tubes to where they're actually. Well, I don't sit on this portion, so that right. I don't know. I'm trying to brainstorm this. For this boat, you still potentially want a place where you can get between these two tubes. Maybe that's not, because I guess I said that. I was just like, I don't really care about that consideration for a 10-foot round boat or a play boat, because I think I'm just always going to gravitate towards the sides. But if I am at the end, it would be a sweet way to enter the boat. But if this is a paddle cat, and then I'm kind of torn. It's just like, does a paddle cat need this diamond shape, or is it going to be way more beneficial to get rid of the diamond shape? You know what I mean? And so that I do not know. You know what I mean? Just when it comes to surfing, I think the non-diamond shape will probably surf better. A little bit more railed, and figuring out where you need that rocker, that'll probably be... But anyway, but still you want to be able to engage a paddle cat from this back thwart position. And so it gives the opportunity for these two tubes, the perimeter tubes, to be paddle cat and wider, and then a gap in the middle. And then so the seat, you're still going to want to sit at a high elevation, but then it can probably flatten out or whatever. This whole video is just saying you could continue those curves until it actually does taper. So let's say this was the side view of a paddle cat where the tubes are separated and there is a gap in the middle, but you still have to get over the drop stitch seat or some sort of material there. And so you want this tube to continue tapering up, and then this tube to continuing taper enough where when you pull down on them, then they're flush with the surf. And this is the back of the boat, so it's going to be a fairly flat stern anyway, hopefully. And so this stern's going to go up like this, and then this seat's going to, this seat, let's just say it goes straight back. So at some point it's going to taper down to like an 8-inch surface. Let's say 8 inches is our sweet spot. Then when we pull down on that, just with our arms, that hits the surface and we can climb up over it. God, that was exhausting. But it's just really difficult to actually just think through like what the design would actually look like without getting in the way of other things. But hell yeah, and then you can climb up through the middle. Could you climb up through the middle with a diamond shaped boat? Sure, because like you have this air inflation front end is so too much, you know what I mean? So if you had this shape, then hell yeah, you could bring that shape down to the water. So if this shape was this, let's say it even just went to here and then stopped and then became this shape, well, that would be it. And then let's say it, but that's where you need this seated position. So that's where it's just like, do you have like a vacancy where you actually kind of have this look like a playboat? But that's where the other commenters come in. It's just like, well, that's where this is going to act like a scoop, and it's going to, and I would want it to act like a scoop to do playboat moves. But for a river runner, you probably don't want this. I mean, you could have this design off the front, but you would have to have it tapered back to here, and then you'd have that surface. But I need a seat height over here, and then so it begs the question: can you remove this material? Still have this shape, kind of bulbous, and so it'll shed water, but then also run into a pocket where, because you actually need to sit at this higher height. Or do you just, bring all this material up and taper it? So those are just the design considerations that I didn't even talk about, in this video of like, if it is inflated, I just think, flattening this thing out and worrying about the buoyancy issues a little bit later. But definitely that gets rid of a lot of buoyancy when you take this edge and you straight line it from here to there. And I think you can get this edge to pop up quite a bit, and so you can remove a lot of this. And it's not removing, it is removing buoyancy, but what it's doing is removing the contact patch right here. This is too aggressive. And if all you need to do is sit right there, then hell yeah, then you can bulbous this over, where it's just like, hey, now you have like a fairly pointed, if this comes up through there, and then this can be a flat deck right there, or like up to here, and then you have your seat, because that's the goal. It's kind of like sit right in here, be able to reach this from there. And that's where I think I was talking about taking 2 feet out the middle, where you need this compartment. So you kind of take it out progressively. I think you can just progressively reduce the size of this boat to an 8 foot. And we talked about how you can get your feet underneath the thwart compartments. All right, so this addendum is getting quite long, so hell yeah. All right, so I mentioned the side of this kayak can get pulled down, and it hits a stability, and it's an edge of like 30 degrees, and it hits a stable platform. So I want that with the raft, but also we showed that if this kind of gets pulled down, maybe it's a lower deck height. And so that's what we're trying to, and I use the word illusion of elevation. So this elevation, I was thinking about it. It would be great if it was the same. The cockpit height is just the same elevation. You don't have to dip down just to pull yourself in just easier. And so this brings up like, if this is tapered, if you do have a V taper and you're able to pull that to the surface of the water, now you have like less height to get over. Or maybe it feels more flatter, even if you have to like pull yourself a little bit farther. I haven't really tested that at all, but that's the idea. And I said it's the illusion of height, because if you do put your if you do high side and sit on this middle part, you are going to bring the boat down to a more lowered position, and that is highly what I want for surfing holes. Like I think sideways plugging holes and stuff like that. I want the V shape to get that other side out, and then the additional like putting a lower or like kind of like a fin, you know what I mean? And some of the other commenters like, well, you don't want scoops, and that's fine, but I definitely want something to stab, and pontoon like points are kind of what I want. And so this would be just one location. It wouldn't be a pontoon point, but at least have some sort of point that comes out here. And so, but still keeping this height. So that's a tough one. We said what did I say? I'm gonna have a double stair step, and then maybe I think this is where you actually do put that 60 to 70 to 80 degree corner just right here. But then you bring the material from here out to it, so it is a diamond shape. And that is the one that I kind of dreamt about. The dream was it was more diamondy, bubbly, and I don't know where the hell the diamond was, whether it was kind of in the front, quadrant, or just in, I don't think it was actually in the middle. Hard to, it's hard to go rewind dreams and stuff like that. But hell yeah. And I think I think that would be pretty sweet to see if that could actually work. And just double thing, you know what I mean? Where you get to put the boat onto a sponsoned angle, flat spot, and just right here, whether it's a trapezoid, and then also be able to climb over that easier without reducing this height. And then the reason why is because I put my leg up here, and then, you know what I mean, like the leg that pushes up against this tube right here is your like flat spot. The hip is not the flat spot. Sitting on the hip is not where you get your stability, and I need to make a video on that. It's the leading leg along this tube that you're leaning over onto your thigh, and that whole thigh creates like a plank, and I consider it like a plank of wood. And so I was at the lake, and I was just like, hell yeah. No, definitely need to make a video of that, because when you're R1ing, you're not just sitting on your hip and leaning on a hip. You're putting that whole leg and leaning over onto that thigh, and that's providing like a plank of flat wood, and that is giving you all your stability. All right, hell yeah. Another addendum. Booyah. Hell yeah. I'm watching my own video and coming up with some extra stuff, and I really do think, I had a dream about this. So one of my videos is, stupid, but no, I had a dream about, let's talk about this because that's fascinating. 30 seconds. So yeah, I dreamed about very similar shapes to, they were kind of like diamond shapes. You'd have this diamond shape kind of out front or out back. I don't really realize it. But it was just, I was on a road trip, and I was like, oh, look at those R1 boats. You know what I mean? And, it's kind of fascinating to have a dream like that. All right, that sucked. But anyway, so that's what I'm going to talk about, because that's what and then one of the, it's so striking, actually. It is like you're on a different planet when you're just like, am I in real life? But the real life moment was going to, Tennessee. No, the story sucks, but Nantahala. So the Nantahala has both a whitewater, what is it? It's an Olympic, I'm trying to think of two thoughts. Damn, this sucks. It has a slalom course, and then it has the playboat wave. And the playboat wave is for freestyle, Olympic freestyle, and then the slalom course is for Olympic slalom. And so you have the meeting of minds. You have these 6-foot playboats, and then you have these diamond-shaped, slalom boats. The new slalom boats are fairly narrow, hella narrow tip and tail, but then they go diamond shape right at the hip, because your hips are yay wide, and so you're trying to cut through that, kind of like a teardrop shape, but it's going to be diamond shape from the bow to your hips, and then down to the stern. And so, all right, we got through that. Anyway, so I'm going to revamp. I don't think I can I need to restart this over. So this is just lost footage, whatever. Maybe I'll put that at the very end. Who knows? All right, hell yeah.